So before I go over the government relations stuff, I just wanted to give a brief update here on Tri-State. Kim Walker reached out to me and asked me to do a brief update versus having somebody else come in and speak in a busy agenda. Us being all back together, thankfully. Having been involved in Tri-State, I said, sure, I would step up and do that. So just make sure we're on the right slide. I'm speaking up here. Okay. The Tri-State Research Foundation, for all of you that don't know, it's comprised of 6 affiliated associations in the metropolitan New York area: Hudson Valley Golf Course Superintendent Association, the Long Island Golf Course Superintendent Association, Metropolitan Golf Association, Connecticut Association of Golf Course Superintendents, and the New Jersey Golf Course Superintendents Association. The board's comprised of 3 members from each association, founded in 1990, basically for research. And it originally started out as research for Summer Patch, which I'll show you in a second here. But since 1990, this organization, this foundation has been involved in the collection and donation of $1.4 million in the tri-state area for research in disease, pretty much everything turfgrass related. We've generated roughly $340,000 in investments, which we continue to grow this account for future research. And on average, we generate roughly $50,000 a year in fundraising activities. This comes through club donations and also recently through rounds donations. To give you an idea, research funded in the last 10 years, over the last 10 years briefly, anthracnose. Anthracnose, for those of you that were green chairman or that have been involved in the golf course superintendent's agronomy capacity long enough would know, anthracnose was a big problem back in the early 2000s. And so anthracnose was a big major player. Tri-State did a lot of work with Rutgers, Cornell University, in all things anthracnose. Diagnosis, treating it, fertility, annual bluegrass weevil. This is an ongoing problem. As John mentioned, we have a lot of POA here in the Tri-State area on golf courses. As much as we may try to prevent it, it provides some of the greatest playing surfaces around, I feel, in this area. And so the annual bluegrass weevil is a huge pest. On average, clubs will spend anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 a year controlling this weevil. And as I'll talk about, controls continue to become tougher and tougher with increased government regulations. But we have, for the last 10 years, and continue to fund research in this annual bluegrass weevil bug that causes a lot of headaches and problems for us all out on the golf course, even more so than carts sometimes. Earthworms, we got into a lot of money donated towards earthworms. Castings, obviously, they're not a disease per se, or an insect pest that causes death, but they do cause damage, and they certainly are an inconvenience. So we got into understanding their life cycles, how we can deter them. Legally, we can't kill them, but we can do things to deter them. As I did say, Summer Patch was in the bottom left-hand corner. Extensive amount of research into Summer Patch. Originally started on greens and in fairways, and it's gone into rough areas, as golf courses, the maintenance of golf courses has increased, and the expectations come into roughs looking how fairways used to look, or roughs looking just as nice as fairways. So too has our research on these diseases and treatment from a cost-effective standpoint in areas like rough. Green surrounds 10, 15 yards outside the fairway, high play areas for presentation. And also, algae. Algae continues to be a big problem, especially on USGA spec greens, new bentgrass greens, older greens, shaded areas. So money has been contributed there. In addition, we've donated money to fund studies into putting green performance. Championship speed performance, tried to quantify how we can produce certain green speeds, what it takes to do that. We've also looked at sand types, donated money for top dressing for sand evaluation, because the particle size, shape, form does matter when it comes to compaction and what you're putting out on your playing surface. Recently completed research. We did this was in the last few years. We did a multi-year evaluation of plant health products to reduce irrigation inputs. This will continue to be a trend going forward as water restrictions have made their way more and more east from out west. So we've looked at actual products that can be put down that can manipulate the efficacy of water. You know, do they work? Don't they work? Are they cost effective? Aren't they cost effective? How can we benefit on the golf course by using less water? Dollar spot's probably one of the most. It's one of the most predictable diseases that we manage out on the golf course. But it also too is one of the most costly because it does have to be managed preventatively, and it can cause some pretty big devastation if it goes untreated. So we funded a 3-year BMP study to figure out what threshold the dollar spot golf courses can handle on the golf course. How can we manage it without having to put down expensive chemicals? What can we do? We evaluated plant health products for controlling summer decline. Everything now in turf is about plant health. So they talk about plant health. Well, do these products actually work? You know? And so we put money into evaluating products to figure out what works. Again, summer patch, talked about that again. This is now summer patch in the rough. 2022, the research that we're working on is bacterial etiolation. Okay, this is a phenomenon that came off a survey that we sent out to the tri-state clubs. Is one of the main problems that was plaguing golf courses. So I won't be too technical, I don't have time for it, but you can ask your superintendent sitting next to you, he can go into bacterial etiolation for you. Rutgers, enhanced root growth. A lot of products now talk about enhanced root growth, okay? You know, put this product down, your roots are gonna be 5-6 inches long, you're never gonna have to water again. Superintendent's dream. Unfortunately, you know, that's not the case. You know, we try to quantify what does work, what doesn't work, and so our money has gone more and more into these types of studies. We have a website. There's an archive of past newsletters and research. There's an online form where you can donate, and we do work with the MGA, and are thankful that the MGA allows us to do a superintendent spotlight each month when the e-revision handicaps come out. And as I said, that's available on the website. The bad news in this all is, you know, we're down in terms of our donations. For whatever reason, you know, we've had a pretty sharp drop-off. Only 74 of the 236 clubs in the tri-state area donated in the past year. That's a drop, a 31% participation drop. It's the lowest number of clubs that we've had donate in the last 6 years. 20 corporate contributions, that's industry partners, contributed out of the 47 that we sent out to. Thankfully, though, this lack of participation has been offset by clubs' donations via Charity Buzz. We did Charity Buzz last year. We asked clubs to donate rounds. The money generated from those rounds would go towards research, so that did offset those losses. But again, you know, it's important just to emphasize, you know, that this dollar amount that we ask for really does go to research, and it affects research in the tri-state area, specific to golf courses in this area. So that concludes that. Okay, how can you help? Make a donation. I have a link in the website. Okay, on to legislative affairs. This is really where I spend a lot of my work away from work. That's I work as a government affairs chair with the Long Island Association and the New York State Turfgrass Association. So, just real quick here to go into on a federal level before I go to state or tri-state level. Okay, right now, currently, okay, obviously with a with a very green-friendly House of Representatives and green-friendly administration at the time, there's a big push away from gas, as we all know and are experiencing. Also, the same thing taking place out on the out in open green space. This is a bill that is certainly on our radar from a national standpoint. It's the Protect America's Children from Toxic Pesticide Act of 2021, and it's being pushed by Cory Booker in New Jersey. And it would basically give towns, local jurisdictions, the ability to ban chemicals at their discretion. You know, and what happens with a lot of these bills on a national standpoint and on a state standpoint, they throw out pictures of kids, they throw out pictures of the environment, you know, they throw the bill out there and they say this is what we're trying to protect. You know, whether it's fact or fiction, that's just what they do. So this certainly is a bill that is, it's scary. It would circumvent the way the chemicals are registered. It would take a lot of the chemicals off our shelves and have us follow the European and Canadian models. You know, and if something like this it did go through, you would definitely see the conditions would not be as would not be what they are by today's standards. It would just be unavoidable. Here we go. What you're starting to see, okay, from the AOCs and Bernie Sanders of the world is this. Golf courses, they don't see golf courses as a leisure activity. They see golf courses as, a rich man's game, and they look at the golf course as a green energy reservoir, you see these articles like being written. Solar farms are now starting to replace golf courses, and in this article it talks about, how golf courses are, environmental sieves, and, really being able to replace them with solar farms, wind farms would be much more sustainable for green energy. And these are the initiatives that are taking place across the country that are going to make their way east. So this is really what we work to debunk, and work to prevent. Golf courses, the future land for affordable housing. This was a bill that was pushed in California. And really, what we see in California tends to go from California to New York or New York to California. But this was one pushed in the state senate out in California. It incentivizes the conversion of accessible, open space, and affordable housing. So they're basically asking municipalities to turn their golf courses into places for affordable housing, and they're going to give them huge incentives to do so. And this bill was shot down, but then it continues to come back up. And this is how a lot of these bills work. They start out as an idea, they get shot down a couple of times. After a while, all of a sudden the bill passes. It's frustrating, but it's what we deal with. On a level of New York State, just want to get into a couple bills here. Adverse state legislation, okay? And this is really tri-state area, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, okay? There's a big push, okay, against insecticides, okay, for grub controls. Right now in New Jersey, golf courses can no longer use a class of chemicals called the neonicotinoids. Okay, I'm not going to get technical, but they just kill grubs. All right, and there's a link between pollinators and does this chemical affect pollinators? And certainly there is some risk, but that's been mitigated by best management practices. But that's not good enough for legislatures and good enough for environmental conservationists. They would rather ban something than work to find ways to be able to create a happy medium. This is just an example. I went up in September, I went up to a New York State Assembly hearing, and I presented on this bill in New York State. And I show up, and I feel like I walked into a lion's den, because it's supposed to be an open hearing where you hear both sides, and this is the state assemblyman right there wearing his bee scarf. Protect the bees, protect the pollinators, protect the kids, and then you listen to these environmental groups speak, and they go to any means to try to get what they want. So it's fun. Again, here's another big one that's coming. I don't know if we're going to be able to stop this or not. Hopefully we can. But by 2027, zero emissions in New York State. If it comes to New York State, it's probably going to come in Connecticut and New Jersey. It's just a bill right now, but it continues to pick up momentum. Any of your lawnmowers, blowers, weed whackers, chainsaws, any of that stuff to all be electric by 2027. It's a great idea. Okay, but the money's not there. The money's not there. The research isn't there. It's just not there right now. It's already happened in California, and there's huge problems. And it kills small business too. I mean, what would I do if I lived close to New Jersey or Connecticut and they didn't have a ban on gasoline power equipment? I go buy the equipment there and just bring it back. So these are the things that legislatures don't think about. Water restrictions. Many golf courses on Long Island have received notice of violations for overpumping their allotments of water. Okay, water restrictions will continue, are not going to go away. Our association on a local level in Long Island is working with a consulting firm right now to create water conservation BMPs even more extensive than the New York State golf course BMPs, because many golf courses on Long Island, they pump from wells directly out of the ground. They have gone over their permitted allotments because they have to have a permit in New York State, have received violations. These violations have asked for a monetary fee to be paid, although they haven't required anybody to pay it yet, and they've also asked for corrective action plans to be written. So many clubs on the island have reached out to outside environmental engineer consultants to help them write these corrective action plans, and our association is working with a firm to create a broader corrective action plan. But water restrictions are not going to go away. And so clubs are going to have to make some tough choices. And this is going to have to be, this is going to, may start to become the norm where, you deal with this in the summer, you deal with some ground, and it's not perfectly green, and maybe you have to reduce some acres like John talked about in his prior presentation, areas that don't get played a lot. So that's what we're dealing with. What you can do, you can support your state association by having your superintendent become a member. The state associations, the New York Turfgrass, the New Jersey Turfgrass Association, NYSTA. I'm not sure if there was anything in Connecticut. I looked, but I couldn't find. These associations, again, they work with allied partners and lobby for the green industry. We work with in New York. I work with the Farm Bureau. Some bigger organizations that are tied into agriculture, and that's really what we've tried to push ourselves from a golf course standpoint. We're not landscape. We're not do-it-yourself. We're not do-it-yourself landscapers. We are part of agriculture, an extension of agriculture, and so we've pushed more and more to try and align ourselves with agriculture from a legislative standpoint. We secure funding from the state for education outreach, BMPs, workforce development is a huge one in New York State right now. We developed a formal apprenticeship program, and workforce development is a real hot button topic because we're all strapped on labor. And again, we fund state college-driven research. You can't underestimate the importance of donating money to the organizations that then donate money to your states. Because when you go to the legislatures, they don't care what Purdue's doing, they don't care what Harvard's doing. They want to know, what's Rutgers doing in New Jersey, what's Connecticut doing in Connecticut, what's Cornell doing in New York, and that's just the way that it works. Support the best management practices by drafting your own facility BMP, and then we have some New York Golf Foundation board members here. They could speak even more to that than I could, but again, New York State created the New York Golf Foundation, the New York State BMPs. These things matter, and creating your own facility BMP matters. It's great for superintendents to have their assistants do it in the off season. It makes them feel empowered, it gives them something to do, and it makes your club look good. Take action and get involved. We do a lobby day every day in New York State. COVID threw a curveball at us, obviously, because we used to go up to Albany and have a lobby day and go speak to senators and legislatures. So the past 2 years, we've done it virtually. And it's been highly successful virtually because we've been able to have the state ag chair from the Senate and the Assembly both years. It's been an hour and 15 minutes of information for them, and then this helps us secure TESF, environmental stewardship money from the state, in the state budget. Lastly, you can put your course on display. Call your state assemblyman, state senator, introduce yourself to them. Invite them out for a 2-year golf course. Host a school field trip. Show your golf course off to the community. Demonstrate that and let them know that you have a voice, because it does matter. If you're in that constituents area, this type of stuff, does matter. We're no longer, in our own little entity, this own little private facility. We're a valuable green space, in the ecosystem of large. So it's important to do that. Any questions? Good. Great. Thank you.